Gentlemen, welcome to the City of San Angelo Development Corporation Board meeting. Notice was properly given of this regular meeting of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation to be held today, March 26, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. in the East Mezzanine of City Hall, 72 West College Avenue, San Angelo, Texas. For the purpose of considering the posted agenda items, this meeting is called to order at 8:30 a.m. And I'm going to jump right off the track at the very beginning of our meeting because we have several new members of this board of directors. I'd like for us to go around the table of the dais and introduce ourselves. If we could start over here with Jimmy.
I'm Jimmy Barton. Carlos Rodriguez.
Steve Mahaffey.
And I'm Rick Mantooth.
Lorenzo Lassiter.
Matt Lewis.
And Travis Stribling.
It's good to have you all join us on this. I'm trying to think of a good adverb. Yeah. I'd like to invite to start this meeting Reverend Kyle Tumeyer, who's the senior pastor at Sierra Vista United Methodist Church.
Almighty God, we thank you so very much for this morning. We thank you so much for the blessing it is to wake up on a beautiful day like this in a beautiful community. We thank you so much for the jewel of the Concho Valley. We pray this day that you'd give wisdom and guidance to the members of this development corporation as they seek a way forward for our city. We pray that you would allow this time together this morning to be filled with joy and thanksgiving. And we pray that each one of us gathered here this day will be able to leave forth from here and continue to share your goodness and your grace with everyone we can. We thank you and we love you. It's your Son's precious, holy, and amazing name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Reverend Tumeyer. Public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens who have registered for public comment prior to the start of this meeting are invited to speak from the podium. Begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during discussion of those items from citizens who have registered for public comment prior to the start of this meeting. And I understand we have the Small Business Development Center come to make public comment.
That is correct, yes, yes.
And who will come?
Desiree Johnson.
Welcome, Desiree.
Sorry, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. As Nora said, my name is Desiree Johnson, and I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center. The Business Resource Center is our home, and so we are very proud to be partners with the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. We partner on quite a few programs throughout the year, one of those being the Business Factory, which is our business incubator program upstairs, as well as our City of San Angelo Business Plan competition, and we're able to bring a lot of resources, knowledge, and assistance to small businesses through that partnership. And because we are such great partners and really family in the BRC, I wanted to share with y'all a very exciting update and development for the Angelo State Small Business Development Center. Our team has been selected to receive the 2025 Small Business Development Center Excellence and Innovation Award from the U.S. Small Business Administration. Wow. And its staff will be honored at the ceremony on May 5th in Washington, D.C. I want to share that this award is part of the SBA's annual National Small Business Week Awards program, and it recognizes SBA-funded training and assistance partners for their impact on local economic growth, job creation, and entrepreneurial support. So just to give you a little bit of insight on what this award looks at, we competed at the district level, which is the San Antonio SBA district. We'll also get to go and celebrate there, which we're very excited about. But our nomination packet was moved forward to compete at the regional level, which is against 6 states, and then selected at the national level as the Center for Excellence. So we are very proud to represent San Angelo and our partnership with Costa DC, and we want to thank y'all for y'all's support, because without that, we wouldn't be an outstanding center that we are. So thank you so much. So I just wanted to also introduce our team. I have Elizabeth Dantzler, Caitlin Polk, Ingli Hengrapai, and Dave Erickson with me here today. These are the folks that contributed countless hours supporting 76 small business startups and expansions through our FY24 year, providing confidential advising services, as well as hosting over 113 training events and seminars supporting the business education of over 1,900 attendees. This resulted in the creation of 391 jobs, including jobs retained, and a capital infusion into our regional economy of over $6.75 million. So thank you so much for your support, and we're excited to further celebrate over the next couple months. Thank you.
Congratulations on your final. All right, before discussing items on the consent agenda, we're going to take a moment for discussion regarding board processes, standard procedures, and ballot language with Brandon Dyson, interim city attorney.
Sir, thank you. I'm Brandon Dyson, interim city attorney, and with so many new board members, we thought it would be a good idea to have a quick overview of how we got here, what authorizes the corporation to do what it does, and we'll also follow up with Tina going over some of the financial stuff related to the corporation. All right, so how we got here, there are 2 provisions in the local government code that authorizes the corporation. One is Chapter 501, and that's just the general authority that allows the city council to create the corporation. And then Chapter 505 is what authorizes creation of a Type B corporation, and that's what this corporation is. So you may see references in the code to Chapter 504, that is for a Type A corporation that does not apply to us. In addition to that, in January 16, 1999, that's when we had the initial ballot that adopted the sales and use tax for economic development purposes. And then in March 1999, we actually filed our articles of incorporation that created the corporation. So the corporation is a nonprofit corporation, just like any other corporation, but subject to these statutes. So we still do filings with the Secretary of State and all of that good stuff. So again, 501 authorizes creation. We must be a nonprofit. We have all the powers, privileges, and functions of any other nonprofit corporation. And there is a Nonprofit Corporation Act statute that governs nonprofits. But to the extent there's any conflict between Chapter 501 and that statute, Chapter 501 prevails. So conflicts would be things like we're required to do the public hearings for projects, expenditures, we're subject to open meetings, all of that kind of stuff that a normal nonprofit might not be. So the Development Corporation is again created by the city councils. So by statute, we're subject to oversight of the city council. They appoint and remove directors, ratify projects and expenditures. And I'll talk a little bit more about expenditures, how we've kind of loosened some of the requirements to have to get council approval for every single little expenditure in a minute. But they also approve amendments to bylaws and can alter the corporate structure or terminate it. So again, one of the things we're subject to is providing notice and a public hearing for projects that you guys approve. So oftentimes you'll see an initial agenda item where we authorize a project and then later we come back for a public hearing. And the purposes of that is to allow public citizens, they can file a petition and actually, if they get enough signatures, force a project to an election. So we have to publish notice of projects 60 days before undertaking those projects. And again, within that 60-day period, if we get a petition, we'd have to go to an election on that project.
Brandon, how many signatures is that?
You got me. I'd have to look. I think it's based on the number of registered voters at the last election, but I'd check on that. Okay, Open Meetings Act, y'all have all done the training with the Attorney General, but some highlights of that. We have to post notice 72 hours in advance of each meeting. It has to be open to the public. We have to allow public comment. One of the recent changes, we did adopt a public comment policy. So now you'll notice that members of the public will sign up with Nora, and she's tracking whoever signed up, and we'll announce that to the chair during that public comment period. There are exceptions to open meetings, and that is where we have our executive session. And those are very specific exceptions. Some examples would be like deliberation about real property, which we have some of those on the agenda today. Also, business prospect negotiations, where a business has provided us with financial or proprietary information, and we're analyzing whether that would meet project requirements and stuff. We can do that in an executive session. And then also consultation with attorney if there's any legal issues that we need to discuss. Public Information Act, y'all don't deal with this as much, but you're still subject to it. So any public record that is created or maintained by the corporation in connection with the transaction of official business is subject to the Public Information Act. That allows members of the public to submit a request to the city clerk and ask for records of the corporation. There's no restriction on the type of record that it applies to. It can be any medium, paper, text, email, and it can even be contained on private devices. So if you're doing corporate business on your private device, obviously anything that's personal would not be subject to the act, but a text that, you know, is applying to corporate business would be subject to the act. So we may ask you for that record. We wouldn't ever take your phone, but we would rely on you to produce that if we got a request. And then there are exceptions to that. If there's attorney-client privileged communications, proprietary information, in those instances, we have to write off to the Attorney General and actually ask whether we can withhold information, and then they'll make a ruling on it and provide that back to us. Something I skipped over and didn't include on the slides I want to talk about. We also have our bylaws that we're subject to, and we recently amended our bylaws in 2023. And those amendments were for the expenditures. So we authorized the Economic Development Director to make expenditures up to $25,000, and then between $25,000 and $1 and $50,000, that still requires board approval and the city manager approval, but it doesn't actually have to go to city council, which lets us deal with items like taking care of maintenance of the BRC and things of that nature. Anything over that $50,000 and $1 would have to still go to city council, and then authorized projects, regardless of the amount, do have to go to city council for ratification. Okay, so going back to Chapter 505, it authorizes creation of the Type B corporation. Any project that is authorized in Chapter 501 is also authorized by Chapter 505, and then 505 has some additional projects that it authorizes. We're also allowed to do expenditures for promotional purposes, but not more than 10% of corporate revenues. And promotional purposes are things like our media contracts that advertise for the corporation. I think our business plan falls under that as well. So projects includes land buildings, land buildings, equipment, facilities, improvements, and expenditures that are for creation and retention of primary jobs and suitable for development, retention, or expansion of, and this provision comes out of 501, and after that there's a whole laundry list of different projects that are authorized by the Act. A primary job is a position at a company where a majority of the product services are exported and is included in certain sectors of the North American industry classification system. And so Bob, when he's reviewing projects, he goes and looks at that and makes sure, there's like a whole list of codes that fall under this, and he'll make sure that those jobs meet that. But there are some jobs that don't require job creation or retention. Job training, infrastructure necessary to promote or develop new or expanded business enterprises, which you'll see one of those on the agenda later. Airport projects, example of that was Skyline. In that case, there's a project authorized for airport facilities, and in that it required Costa DC to actually have a leasehold interest and then to convey a lease to the developer, which we did, and we've completed that project. And then, of course, affordable housing and water supply. And one more item about projects. So we do, each project that we do have to do a performance agreement. So we'll have whatever conditions that business would be subject to, and then have provisions for, if they don't meet those, then we would recapture any incentives that we've provided. So that takes us to the ballot and the projects authorized by the ballot. The ballot was first adopted January 16th, 1999. It's a tax rate of 0.5%, and that got extended later in September 11, 2004 until June 30th, 2025. And I think there's some confusion because some people think that is still the expiration date because of the way the ballot's worded. But the last time the ballot was adopted, it actually repealed the expiration date. And so currently there is no expiration to the ballot. So I won't read all this, but this is the provision out of the ballot that is for water projects. And I think the key point on this is that started out at a minimum of 21%, increasing to 72% of gross sales and use tax proceeds as voter-approved project obligations are met. So later on in the ballot, there's some specific projects, and as those were funded and completed, that percent for the water supply projects increased to the 72%. And then on the economic development side, that is all the other projects that we've talked about in Chapter 501 and 505 that you guys approve, that would fall under this provision of the ballot, and that percentage is up to 28% of gross sales and use tax. It's also approved affordable housing, and you'll notice there it says at the current allocation there's no percent or amount. That was originally funded at $335,000, and as some of you know, we recently entered into a contract with Galilee CDC to administer our affordable housing program. And so Neighborhood and Family Services, they still oversee that contract with Galilee, make sure they're doing projects in accordance with that. And from time to time, you'll still see projects from them, I think specifically multifamily housing projects have to come back to this board to get approved. You may still see some projects from Neighborhood and Family Services that were done before the contract with Galilee. And because the way those were structured, there's like notes and a deed of trust that's been recorded in the property records. The Neighborhood and Family Services would still administer those, and they may still come back to you if there's an issue with those. So on 4, there was the Concho River improvements. I think this is actually complete. And then 5 is the list of specific projects that the ballot approved, and all of these are funded and done except for Fort Concho and the sports complex. There's still a little bit left to complete those projects.
But they're fully funded.
Right. And the last provision on the ballot is just that if there's any projects that we want to do outside of either the economic development side or water or the specific projects that have been listed, that would have to go back to the voters to approve more than what's already been allocated. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions.
If it were to go back to the voters, it would risk a sunset, right? There's a potential trap there.
I mean, depending on how it went back to the voters,
So you could put the language however you wanted.
yeah, I mean, but now there is no sunset or expiration.
But you could also risk it going away altogether, couldn't you? Going to the voters, could they just vote out?
But yeah, I guess they could vote to totally nix it, yeah, terminate it, so.
Any other questions or comments?
All right.
We do have more presentation from the corporate treasurer.
Yep. Next up is Tina Diersky, who will take us through financials and do some discussion on that as well.
All right, thank you. So most of you probably already know that the state limits sales tax to a total of 8.25%. In San Angelo, 6.25% of that goes to the state of Texas. 1% comes to the city of San Angelo. 0.5% goes to the Development Corporation, which is us, and then the other 0.5% goes to Tom Green County. Vendors remit their sales tax to the state comptroller. The state comptroller is then where the Type B portion is allocated to COSA-DC. Sales tax is received by the city 2 months after the sale is acted. So in other words, March receipts are reflective of sales made in January. And each month, finance staff then splits 72% of the revenue to the ballot fund and 28% to the economic development fund. So just Type D sales tax performance, month over month for March, we were up 0.71%. Year to date, we're up 4.81% over the last fiscal year. And we're over our revenue budget by $522,000. That's largely due to budgeting fairly conservatively. We follow what the city budgets for their sales tax revenue. And for FY25, we budgeted at 97% of what we actually collected in 2024. And this chart is kind of showing that sales tax trend. You can see that peak there in February. In February, we were up 18%. We did have a significant audit adjustment in February. I think it was about $200,000. Without that audit adjustment, though, we still would have been up 8% in February. And moving on to your financials, your year-to-date actuals for sales and use tax at $1.5 million. You can see there at 46% of budget, so slightly over what we budgeted. And then other includes interest, lease income, and a sale of industrial park land. As far as expenditures, the personnel is at $62,000. We do remit that quarterly to the city. And so right now, we've budgeted 2 of 3 positions that are currently filled with a small amount charged here for the interim economic development director. And so if we were fully staffed at 3 FTEs, we'd be closer to that 25% based on 1 quarter having been billed out so far this year. In O&M, that includes the BRC, the chamber agreement, business plan competition, utilities, industrial park, amongst a few other smaller items. That is showing at 62% of budget, largely because the chamber agreement is fully encumbered, even though we haven't quite paid out the full year. So it shows a little higher. Same with partner affiliations at 65%. We have paid out the full amount for the Ports to Plains agreement, which I think is that 56,000, and so it's showing, it looks like it's over budget. It's just because we've already made that expenditure at the beginning of the year. Indirect costs, we bill that also quarterly, and so that's at $44,000 and 25%. Current projects at $1.2 million, and then future projects and capital, that's where we move money out throughout the year as projects come up that the board approves, and we have that available for use during the current year. So far this year, we've moved out $1 million for the Skyline Brett project, $275,000 for Park Hill Smith and Cooper for engineering and design at the industrial park, and $59,500 for the housing study. We did start out the year with future projects at $2.4 million. And this is a list, there's 2 slides here with lists of projects that we currently have approved and ongoing. So I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of what we are doing right now. If you have any questions or comments about these projects, we might be able to give a brief update today and then bring something back if you have a more in-depth questions.
I have one quick question. I know some of these projects, there's probably year overlaps and multi-year aspects to them. Are the figures that you guys have budgeted for in these financial statements reflective of the commitments to the projects or what's planned to be spent this year? How do you account for the multi-year aspect?
Right now, because we go ahead and budget for the full amount of the project at the time that the project is approved.
Okay.
In the event that we did need to look a little bit closer at cash flows on a year-to-year basis, we could certainly do that if we needed to free up some budgetary dollars for a project that came up.
Okay.
Any questions on this slide? Good. Okay. We'll move on to the ballot. Again, sales and use tax at almost $4 million there. Other is only interest income in this fund. Affordable housing, Brandon mentioned that that's now a contract with Galilee. There is an additional amount there. You see that bottom number there that's under the revised budget, the $284,687, excuse me. That was due to a carryover for affordable housing. COCDC retained that amount in case they have future projects that come up that they may want to do under affordable housing.
Because of the nature of that money being identified as a separate amount, we allow it to keep its character as dedicated to housing. So the 284 is the amount that was not spent in prior years, and we've identified it as available for housing only at this point.
That next line, long-term water supply, includes $200,000 for the West Texas Water Partnership, and the remainder is for the agreement for the Fort Stockton water rights. Debt service, about $2.5 million of that is for debt that was issued for ballot projects that were approved on the ballot that Brandon talked about earlier. The remaining $2.9 million is transferred to the Water Debt Service Fund to help support debt service for the Hickory and other long-term water projects. Indirect costs, again, at that 25%, that's billed 1 quarter, and then future projects in this fund still has a remaining $2.4 million available. Other ballot projects, Brandon went through these earlier already. Just kept this slide up here in case you all had any more financial-related questions or other.
Everybody good? There will be a test.
And then as far as your current financial position for economic development, you have $3.7 million committed for projects, fixed assets at $5.1 million, about $250,000 reserved for encumbrances, and then your unassigned fund balance right now is $7.7 million. And then on the ballot side, committed for ballot is about $1 million. The assigned for debt service is $5.4 million, and then unassigned just over $10 million. And that's what I have, Mr. President.
All right. Any questions for Tina before we move along? Comments, suggestions? All right, now we'll move on to the consent agenda. That'll now be considered. Those items include A, consider approving the regular meeting minutes from February 26, 2025, as presented by Nora Navarez. Consider approving the necessary corporation disbursement, also presented by Mrs. Navarez, and consider approving the January 25 financials as presented by Tina Deersky. Ms. Navarez, do we have anyone for public comment? Do we have any other questions or discussion from members of the board? All right, we'll consider a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Lassiter? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rodriguez? We have a motion and a second. If you are in favor of approving consent agenda, will you say aye? Aye. If not, will you say nay? Any abstentions? And it is done. We'll now consider our regular agenda. First, we consider appointing a vice president and/or second vice president to serve unexpired terms for the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. And we will hear from Interim Director of Economic Development, Michael Dane.
Good morning, Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. We have several new appointees. What we have is a vacant first vice president position, and we've posted this in accordance with the instructions from our legal advisor. He said that we need to have this item on the agenda so that you can consider what you might prefer for filling that position.
If I'm not mistaken, this will be a position that will only be filled for 1 month until we meet in May for election of the new term.
I think we will reconsider officers at that meeting. Yes, sir. But a month's worth of extra pay could make a difference.
Our current second vice president is Steve Mahaffey, and our first vice president has left the board and has been replaced since. And so what is your will? What would you like to see done?
I nominate Steve Mahaffey move up to first vice president.
Second.
All right, that's on the table. Do you want to move in a second vice president at this point? Or do you want to wait until May? It's up to you.
Do we need a second vice president?
The bylaws call for one. You don't have to have one. But I think in May, we'd probably want to fill that position for sure.
Yeah.
We wait for May.
Either way.
All right, sounds like the will of the body is that we wait until May for the second vice president. We have a nomination and a second for Steve Mahaffey to move to first vice president. If you will approve that nomination, will you say aye?
Aye.
If not, say nay, and sign here for your nomination. Do we have any abstentions? And it is approved, thank you. All right, next up. Wait, we should have had public comment on that. Did we have any public comment on that?
No public comment.
All right, thank you very much. A little out of order, but there we go. All right, we'll next hear a presentation regarding the 2024 annual report. No action needed on this, it's for information only. Andy Marquis comes to the podium.
Good morning, Andy Marquis, Media Advantage. Welcome, new board members. I am your marketing firm. We have the contract for the Development Corp, so we perform various marketing duties. I'm happy to brief you guys on that at a later time. We are required to provide an annual report after the previous year has ended, and I believe the deadline for that to get it to council for review is May. So we're trying to get that earlier and earlier each year. We decided this year to do something a little bit different and to do a annual report in a video form, as opposed to previous years, it's been a printed book. And so we feel that representing the projects that we've accomplished over the years really can be shown a lot better through video. So here we go. Please enjoy.
Hello, I'm Michael Dane. The city.
I don't know. It's not showing on this slideshow. Brian's probably on his way. Morley. We'll say there's one typo on Technology Tower. You'll see the 0 missing, but we'll correct that. We all looked at it, Bob. We all looked at it. Oh, the technical difficulties? Yes. There we go.
We might have success.
Hello, I'm Michael Dane. The City of San Angelo Development Corporation remains steadfast in its commitment to fostering a strong and diverse economy in our region. By working closely with our partners, we continue to strategically invest in opportunities that enhance business growth, workforce development, and infrastructure improvements, ensuring San Angelo remains a vibrant place to live and work.
At the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, our mission is clear: to drive economic growth by supporting businesses, attracting new investments, and enhancing the quality of life in our city. None of this would be possible without the support of our partners in our board of directors, who provide invaluable leadership and vision for the future of San Angelo. Aviation is taking off in San Angelo. Skyline Aviation continues to expand, bringing new opportunities to the region. With a $3 million grant from COSA DC, the project transformed the facility into a state-of-the-art jet center, enhancing aviation services in the region. In November 2024, COSA DC approved a $1 million grant to Skyline Aviation to establish an aviation mechanics school in partnership with Howard College. This new facility will offer hands-on training in airframe and power plant technology, with both an associate degree program through Howard College and a shorter certification option directly through Skyline Aviation. To support the future of aviation education, COSA DC awarded a $2 million grant to Angelo State University for the construction of a new flight training facility at Mathis Field. Spanning nearly 15,000 square feet on 3 acres, this state-of-the-art center will enhance pilot training opportunities. San Angelo is a hub for energy and manufacturing growth. Project BESS, a 160-megawatt lithium battery storage facility by Zeppelin Energy Storage, will enhance grid reliability with 2-hour backup power storage. While COSA DC was not directly involved, our team collaborated with the city's legal department and city council to establish a tax abatement reinvestment zone, securing an 85% tax abatement for 3 years. COSA DC partnered with the city's legal department and city council to establish a new enterprise zone ordinance, allowing Ethicon to participate in the Governor's Enterprise Zone program. The program provides a rebate of a portion of Ethicon's state sales tax payments without impacting city sales tax revenue. Angelo Solar, a 348 megawatt solar power plant, represents a $350 million investment in renewable energy for the region. The development has led to a permanent regional Apex office on Loop 306 and is attracting additional investors, including manufacturers and battery energy storage companies. Project Powerhouse is bringing innovative energy solutions to the region. Technology R&D site visit August 14th and 15th in 2024 for a site selection that's in process. San Angelo's Industrial Park remains a cornerstone of economic growth. Lone Star Truck Group, LLC, has purchased 17.6 acres in Phase 1 of the industrial park, making a major expansion for the local Freightliner dealership. This development will enhance commercial trucking services in the region and contribute to the continued growth of San Angelo's industrial park. Amazon's Last Mile facility continues to boost regional logistics, building a new 35,000 square foot facility in Phase 1 of the industrial park. Built on 12 acres, this facility opened in December of 2024. This project was made possible through the efforts of Economic Development Marketing and Recruitment Team, further strengthening San Angelo's logistics and distribution network. Other projects worth highlighting, including H&E Equipment Services and San Juanita Skilled Nursing Facility, are bringing even more opportunity to our community. Supporting local businesses is a top priority. In June 2024, COSA DC approved a $100,000 Business Retention and Expansion Program grant to Talka Texas Brands, Inc. This investment supports the purchase of new manufacturing equipment to enhance automation at their Roosevelt Street facility. Technology Tower is driving innovation, and construction has commenced on mechanical and interior finishes, estimated fall 2025. Allen's Transport, who provides essential transportation services to the energy industry, received a $150,000 BREP grant. We're fostering entrepreneurship through key initiatives. The San Angelo Business Plan Competition continues to help local businesses thrive. In 2024, the competition, coordinated by COSA DC, ASU Small Business Development Center, and the Norris Vincent College of Business, awarded $100,000 in cash grants to support local entrepreneurs. 44 businesses entered the competition, with 9 advancing to the final round. On November 13th, the winners were announced, each receiving funding to expand their businesses and contribute to San Angelo's economic growth. First place went to Rankin Transmissions, a family-owned business expanding its operations to supply remanufactured transmissions across the Southwest. Second place was awarded to Angelo Donuts and Kolaches, supporting the launch of their second location in Sherwood Way. Third place went to the Canine Resort and Daycare, which will use the funds to expand and enhance its boarding and grooming facilities. Congratulations to the winners, and thank you for helping grow San Angelo's local economy. The Business Factory Incubator Program, established in 2003, supports small businesses and entrepreneurs in San Angelo and the Concho Valley by providing office space, networking opportunities, and training through the ASU Small Business Development Center. Over the past 21 years, the program has assisted 118 businesses and successfully graduated 14 companies. In November 2024, the Gold Beacon, owned by Kim Henry, graduated from the incubator programming. Specializing in nonprofit solutions, Kim's business helps agencies enhance capacity and sustainability. We celebrate her success and look forward to her bright future. The incubator continues to foster new businesses, including Ascend Contractor Solutions, a 2023 edition and winner of a $40,000 business competition grant, is a 30-year-old business who has expanded to offer a wide range of exterior and construction services to commercial clients across the Concho Valley and West Texas. Watson Wood Law, owned and operated by Whitney W. Wood, specializing in estate planning since 2023. A&M Electric, a family-run business serving commercial and residential clients since 2022, including an expansion of Shannon Hospital. 4L Texas Roofing became an incubator client in May of 2023. Provides roofing services for new construction, remodels, and storm restoration and repair for both residential and commercial properties in the Concho Valley. Through mentorship and resources, the Business Factory Incubator Program remains committed to helping businesses grow and create jobs in our community.
As we look ahead, we are excited about the new projects on the horizon and the continued opportunities for growth and collaboration. We extend our gratitude to the COSA DC Board, the City Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and all of our partners for their dedication to making San Angelo a premier destination for business and investment.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, comments, or suggestions for Mrs. Markey?
Did you like the video form as opposed to a book? Kind of forced you to watch all of it.
Personal opinion, I really do like the video format better. You are kind of forced to pay attention, and you don't stop and put the book down and come back to it later or whatever.
Well, we have an asset to use for our new website. So
That's true. All right.
every year.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
guys.
much. We'll move on. Consider approving the revised business retention and expansion program plan, incentives policy, and guidelines. Presentation by Michael Dane.
Good morning, Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. We needed to update this policy. The old draft had referred to an employee by name. We've changed that. And that's the only change to the new policy. Our efforts here are going to be geared toward supporting the chamber and the action items to implement the policy. So the policy has very little change. Our effort is going to be geared at putting the boots on the ground to help stir more BREP activity. So we recommend approval of the new policy.
Do we have any public comment, Mrs. Navarez?
No, we do not.
Any questions or discussion from members of the board?
Michael, if I could ask a question on page 3 of 4, the incentive types, job creation, item number 2 under incentive types. The language, it's been in there a number of years that the incentive types could range from 1,000 to 10,000 per job for a BREP project. And, you know, there have been this past year BREP projects that didn't necessarily create jobs but save jobs. Is that language necessary or conflicting, or does that section need to be revised in the future?
That's a great question. From our perspective, we just want as many options as we can get. And if you think that's a viable option, I would say we ought to leave it in there. If you think that we should eliminate it, we can support that. And we would attempt to support businesses that have a need in another way. That's a good point. There was a project up there related to Okra, and it was about retention of the business and the jobs, and that money was very much geared toward modernizing the production process.
Well, I think obviously the previous board that I wasn't on approved it and made an exception to this policy. And I'm just curious, well, then should we in the future, maybe in May, consider revising it just to allow this board to know that they have that flexibility? While this might be a good target, there are other extenuating circumstances that BREP may be a really great project, policy to help local businesses, maintain and stay, flourish, but may not necessarily add jobs at this rate. I think that project that was highlighted in the video is a great example of making sure COSA DC has the flexibility and that we don't have a policy tripping us up. Just something for future consideration.
And I think certainly if you can live with it for the next month, that's something that ought to be brought up in the May strategic planning. And we
I'd
can
like to add
visit-
that to the May strategic planning.
Sounds good. Did you make it? Okay.
The document that's been provided is a 4-page document. Is this the document that's been modified
Yes?
with the language the change in the language? And if so, can you kind of point me to where that is in the document?
The change that was made, Travis, I believe,
Yes, ma'am.
is on the first page, about the second paragraph.
Second paragraph.
What it stated on there was a past employee that worked with us. Her
Yes, ma'am.
name was in there, and so
Okay.
we just removed her name.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, as you review these things, we're not bashful about putting something on the agenda. If you find something or think of something you'd like added or considered, we can put an item on the agenda and we can talk about it. Absolutely.
Is there an urgency to pass this today? I mean, I kind of like Matt's idea and Rick's idea of tabling this. Let's discuss it. Let's give these 4 new board members a chance to get their feet planted firmly, and we can review it in the May.
We can do whatever the board's pleasure is. What's driving this from our perspective is that our plan this year was to have Media Solutions do some BREP-oriented marketing to support the efforts of the chamber folks. And as we considered an update to the policy, we thought we would want to make sure that we were not going to have a dramatic shift in the policy. Also, we are going to start a meeting with BREP stakeholders and potential community partners so that we can share that burden and support. We think that some of our community partner organizations should be more aware of BREP opportunities, and we would like to be more aware of the services they provide. Examples would be DSA, Workforce Solutions. And so we're going to start a conversation about that kind of thing. And so all of that is what was driving our interest in getting an updated policy so that we could begin publicizing and developing a plan to support the chamber as they worked toward more BREP projects. We plan to support them anyway, so if we don't make a change to the policy today, we're still going to meet and find out what Steve's ideas are for assisting them, for developing that partnership into a much more active support of what they do. We don't need the policy, and I think Andy has done a terrific job for us and is ready to go with some marketing.
I'm not opposed to it. If that's the only change, it doesn't sound very substantial of a
You're right.
change, so we can change it now, we can change it again in May. I was just curious the urgency.
It's not holding us back now, and so if you want to change it and change it again in May, I'm okay with that. If you
I
want
move
to table
approval, we accept it as presented.
whatever you guys want.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Do we have any other questions or suggestions by the board? All right, if you're in favor of approving the revised Business Retention and Expansion Program Plan, Incentives, Policy, and Guidelines, will you say aye?
Aye.
If not, will you say nay? Any abstentions? And it is done. All right. So we'll discuss it again in May. There will be a test.
Mr. President? Excuse me. Who did the second? I'm sorry. I didn't catch him. Steve? Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we good to move? We will now consider a resolution for project to expand the existing South Plains Lamesa Railroad Limited Rail Park through the purchase of approximately 251.874 plus or minus acres out of the Sarah R. Robertson Survey 178 Abstract 8474 from the City of San Angelo at a sale price of $1.4 million plus closing costs, and subsequently conveying the same property to Wisner Holdings LLC, DBA SPLRR for cash at closing in the amount of $1 million with the remainder of $400,000 subject to repayment pursuant to the terms of an economic development performance agreement, authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute all necessary documents and finding that such expenditures for land, infrastructure improvements, railport facilities, and related site improvements are necessary to promote or develop new or expanded Next page. Business enterprises under chapters 501 and 505 of the Texas Development Corporation Act, and recommending ratification by City Council. Presentation by Michael Dane, Interim Director of Economic Development. And let me pause here and let you know that Brandon tells me he's paid by the word, and that is something that I understand totally and completely. Michael.
We would like to discuss this item in open session after we have had our discussion in executive session.
All right.
So I would ask that we move into executive session and bring this item back up after we've had our executive session.
Any conflict with that?
No.
All right. It is so moved. Thank you. And you made me read the entire thing.
I was struggling. Do I interrupt or do I?
All right. So we will move that to executive session. No action at this time. It is 9:25 a.m. and we will move now to executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding number 1, purchase of 8.786 acres of land at the industrial park. Number 2, sale of 27 plus or minus acres of land at the industrial park. Number 3, approximately 316 acres out of Sarah R. Robertson, survey number 178. And B, Section 551.087, business prospects and negotiations regarding Project Falcon, Project Falcon 2, and Project Jefferson. Anybody still here?
Need to, Brandon? Pardon? Would you?
I don't know how important it is.
Yeah, but that's, there was closing costs that came out of it. So 395 is.
Or the gross.
This is the gross. Mhm.
You want me to put the amount?
No, he's
All right, we're back in open session. It is 10:42 a.m. And we will consider possible action of items discussed in closed session if needed, and we have a couple of items we're going to bring back out. The first is considering the resolution for a project to expand the existing South Plains Lamesa Railroad Limited Rail Park.
Thank you. This item is a little more complex than some that we normally do. But basically, it's proposing that COSA DC purchase about 251 acres of city land adjacent to the existing railport for expansion of the railport, and then turning around and selling that land to the operator of the railport as an economic development project. The terms of it would be COSA DC would purchase the land from the city of San Angelo at a purchase price of $1.4 million, which is basically the appraised value. Approximately. COSA DC would then sell the land to the South Plains Lamesa Railroad. It's actually a holding company that also owns that railroad and does business as that railroad for the $1.4 million. The terms would be of the sale from COSA DC would be $1 million cash at closing, and then we would carry a note. COSA DC would carry a note of $400,000 payable in 5 annual payments of $80,000 per year. That's a zero interest loan, with a provision that the borrower, the buyer, would get a 50% credit for any capital investments in infrastructure specific to the rail. excuse me, I'm sorry. So if he, for example, spent $800,000 on the rail improvements, he would no longer owe the $400,000. Requires an economic development performance agreement between Costa DC and South Plains Lamesa Railroad, or the holding company, or the ownership company, rather, sorry. Basically, we're looking at the tract here as identified as city property, the existing rail park being here, and the red lines are conceptual only. It's an idea of what may happen in providing a loop track or a series of loop tracks that would serve that property.
And that yellow border should not include the pit at the bottom.
It does not include the pit at the bottom, that's correct. That area right there. Like I say, this is conceptual only, and but the idea of a loop track is something that the buyer is looking at doing and feels they need. What else do I need to cover, Brandon? I think that's it.
The 10-year timeframe, does that need to be?
Sorry?
The 10-year timeframe, I'm sorry. Nora told me to speak into 10-year timeframe. Do we need to?
Yeah, I think
mention that?
do we need to discuss all of that in the meeting, this meeting, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think staff is supportive of a 10-year duration for the agreement, and which would include restrictions that require it to be developed for railport expansion, and then so long as that's met, then those restrictions would be lifted.
Yep.
I think just going back to a couple slides there with the agreement for the proposal. So.
Is it, no, go back. With a,
That one?
Yeah, yes, sir. The 50% credit for capital investment in infrastructure against the loan balance, but that necessarily wouldn't be just to the loan balance if it was 400,000. It would go back to, it would be a total of 400, because the loan balance would be 400, so that would limit it to 2.
Correct. And it's anticipated they will send significantly more than that.
Exactly.
All right, do we have any public comment? Do we, no? All right, and do we have any other questions from the board? We'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as described by staff.
So motion to approve as staff presented.
Second.
Director Mahaffey and Director Rodriguez, motion and a second. All who would agree, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And it is done. That was quick. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's move to the next project coming out of executive session, and that is the, help me, where are we? Purchase of 8.786 acres of land at the industrial park. Bob, will you continue?
Yeah, we, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, we sold 8.786 acres in the industrial park, phase 2, to a company called Big Sky Equipment. They, at the time, intended to develop that as a sales center for their heavy equipment and farm equipment. They have since decided that that location and the costs associated with the development and everything all put together is they've decided to go another way. And they asked that we purchase the property back from them. We received a letter from their attorney stating that they, in essence, would accept an offer for us to buy it back at the purchase price, with each side paying their own closing costs. And I think it's in our best interest to control what happens on the corner. That this is a corner property. I think it's in the board's best interest to control the use of that property. So staff would recommend approval of purchasing that back at a purchase price of, did I give you the number?
Write it down. It was 45,000 an acre.
395,000.
Roughly. And that was Big Country, clarification, Big Country equipment.
Big Country equipment, yes.
Any public comment on this item? Do we have any other board discussion? All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented by staff.
I'll make the motion authorizing the board president to accept the offer to purchase 8.786 acres of land in the industrial park from Big Country Equipment Holding at the original purchase price pursuant to the option to repurchase and the deed restrictions plus standard closing costs and to execute all necessary documents.
All right. Do I have a
Second the motion.
Mr. Lewis? All right. Motion by Mr. Stribling and a second by Director Lewis. All who would approve say aye. Aye. You will not say nay. Are there any abstentions? And it is done. All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Do we have any future agenda items that we need to be talking about? I think we added one thing to the agenda for the May meeting from Director Lewis earlier. That may have been yesterday or the day before. It's been a pretty long meeting.
The May meeting is intended to be like a strategic planning, budget setting, and I mean, all that kind of stuff.
There will be a regular meeting plus that, strategic planning, yes.
What is the date of that? That would be the fourth Wednesday?
Fourth Wednesday of May.
I guess one question I would ask as a future item of discussion is perhaps ask the question, do we always meet on the fourth Wednesday? Now, I think the answer is, well, that's what way we've always done it. And I would always ask, is there a better date? Have we ever considered polling, now that we've got a lot of new directors, if there's a better day? I don't know, sometimes there's different things going on, or a better time that we would certainly be open. I know I would be open to that. Sometimes calendars get crazy. I know I don't want to, I am out the fourth Wednesday in April. Before I got on the board, I'd already made some other out-of-town plans, and I just was curious if that works for everybody else and I'm the lone duck, or.
Let's talk about that at the strategic planning meeting. I think that's a good topic
place
to
for
talk about. Yep.
Also, any other subjects, topics that you would like to discuss at the workshop? As of right now, I know the date and time of the meetings, and also possibly speaking about more in depth about the BREP, as y'all suggested earlier. So anything else that comes up that you feel that we need to discuss, please email me or Michael, and that way we can get that. I can start working on that agenda for our work session.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Quick reminder, all Costa DC meetings are broadcast on Channel 17 Government Access at 8 a.m. on every Wednesday after each meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 23rd at 8:30 a.m. right here in the East Mezzanine of City Hall at 72 West College Avenue. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Director Stribling and a second by Director Lewis, and we are adjourned. I didn't get a chance to vote on that.